Howdy, howdy, fellow movie watchers, and welcome back for another edition of the Wisco Movie Watchers Podcast, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, we are your hosts, Evan Davies and Dylan Davies. Ironically enough, I usually say movie expert, but when it comes to this movie, I'm far more the expert this week.
100%.
Because we are in our wheelhouse today. We've gone back to the first iteration of this show, which was the first big idea that Dylan ever had for the show, which was the box office series, or the big box office series, in which we go back and we watch the biggest box office hit from every single year from about, 1965 onward, and we just choose at random unless it's a big anniversary year or something of that nature. Last time on the show that we did this, we were doing Ghostbusters, and we drew 1995, which means we are going to Batman Forever for this week, which even I at the time was hesitant, even though Batman is my jam. And I was actually pleasantly surprised watching this movie. I don't know if I just prepared myself mentally to the point where I was like, woof, woof,
Well,
woof.
I guess the question right away is, have you always felt that way?
So I've generally kept this idea in mind with Batman Forever. I feel that Batman Forever is inferior to the first two directed by Tim Burton. I've always felt that. I always will feel that.
I think most people feel that way, yeah.
Outside of recent times with the Batman, I don't think... I mean, like, Batman Returns is truly a top 10 movie of all time for me. It just hits. Just hits personally for me. And I think that's kind of... It's near perfection the way you could tell a Batman story. Because it's kind of in its own world, which is why of the original 4 movies of this series, that's the one that holds up the best. Because it's kind of just in its own world, and you just accept Batman as Batman, and it's Tim Burton getting to play a lot, but still in a way that's acceptable. Batman Forever will eternally get a worse rap than it deserves, though, because of the follow-up that it starts with Batman and Robin. That is,
100%.
I think Batman Forever is actually a pretty decent film. I think you could even consider it pretty good in sections. Not all sections, but in some sections I think it hits pretty well. But you can see the downfalls of where it starts, the Batman and Robin trend, and then Batman and Robin, although there is so much studio interference in that movie and a lot of just stupid choices, is so bad that it just went, well, Batman Forever started it, so it must be their fault, so we're going to make this movie even shittier. So...
Yeah. I really noticed this time around, because I hadn't seen this movie in a long time.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't Arnold who was doing those puns. They started here.
Yeah, we started to get some writing here that's just not inherently great.
What I wrote down is like, this is like the most comic book movie I have ever seen.
Very much so. I have the same
In
thing.
terms of like, especially the writing, because it's just like they're not hiding exposition at all. It's just right in your face.
I have written in my notes, oddly too comic booky in ways where...
Yeah.
So, overall sense of this movie is this movie will always live. It lives in between the comparison of two very, very different things.
Yeah.
You have, as I just described, and many people's opinion as well as time has moved forward, because at the time, people did not like Batman Returns. They just thought it was too dark, too weird, but mostly the captions, the comments always were too dark, and that was aided by the fact that parents hated Batman Returns.
Sure. That makes sense.
Because they marketed, they had the McDonald's toy lines, they had a bunch of toy lines. It's like, dude, you thought that after Batman, the original Batman, I don't inherently think that's super kid friendly. I think a kid can watch it, but we had very liberal parents that said we
Yeah.
could do whatever the fuck we wanted. So when it came to movies and stuff, I don't think Batman Returns is much different than Batman '89. But parents at the time were like, "You have this black goo coming out of the penguin, and it's too dark, and there's too many sexual jokes, and it's too sexualized, and all this shit." It's like, okay. And the studio was also feeling that criticism and weren't fully happy with it. And they blamed a lot of that on Tim Burton getting too much control in the '92 Batman Returns. So they met up actually for meetings to see, because Tim Burton's like, okay, well, I guess we're going to do a third. Originally, Michael Keaton was going to come back for Batman Forever. And in interviews, Tim Burton has made it clear that he felt that you guys don't want me to come back, do you? You don't want me to do another one. And they're like, no, 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 no. And he's like, no, I get it. You don't want me back. It's fine. And
Mhm.
Tim stayed on as a producer.
Yeah.
So, also known as, we're going to keep what we think is the value in you right now, which is your name. And this is also a year after Ed Wood, where he's nominated for an Oscar and other stuff of that nature. So, I get that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense in terms of that feels like a natural way to move on as well for Tim Burton. I'm surprised he wanted to do a third one, honestly.
Well, the thing is, this is with Batman Returns, outside of the criticism, Batman Returns is a much more logical movie for him to be happy with. I don't know if that's truly his
Oh no,
feelings or not, but
I completely agree. Like in terms of his vision, it's much more of an auteur film.
oh yeah.
Like it's his vision completely. But I just don't see Tim Burton as someone who would want to keep doing sequel after sequel after sequel, you know?
Sure, I think the natural thing, especially at the time, except for what, Superman, almost all series at that time end in threes. You had Indiana Jones, you had Star Wars. Jaws pushed too forward. Jaws wasn't even supposed to be a franchise, and it just the studio
Yeah.
forced to become a franchise. You're looking at trilogies as kind of the way everyone thinks things work. So I guess maybe that might be the logic behind it. But with that being said, so Tim stays on as a producer, which, from all extents and purposes, it was very much the hey, we had phone calls maybe with Tim or meetings with Tim to get his opinion, and then that's the end of Tim Burton's producerial capacities on this film.
Yeah.
And you get Joel Schumacher, who he has a couple films that I really enjoy, but
A couple.
he would not be my first choice for Batman.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Lost Boys, and even post this, I think number 23 is actually a pretty fun movie and enjoyable. It's enjoyable. I don't think it's great, but it's enjoyable. Uh, there's some other stuff that he's done that I find somewhat interesting, but and like I fallen the first time I saw the Lost Boys, I fucking fell in love with it. So, but that's just up my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I know I think it's 2 years before this is Falling Down with Michael Douglas, which most people regard as his best movie. I've not seen that, but I'm pretty sure Michael Douglas considers that like one of his best performances of his career. So
Really
that is saying something considering Michael Douglas.
interesting.
But yeah, and then he's got like 8 millimeter and stuff with Nicolas Cage, which that's a pretty good movie. But he just doesn't have any like standout stuff to me.
Yeah, it only stands out if you just hit that sensible part of somebody for Joel Schumacher. He doesn't have
Yeah.
he's not a director where you go, well, undeniably, this is the best. It's whatever fits your sensibility. Which Joel Schumacher, he brings a very distinct visual taste to most of his movies in terms of the people he works with. To not saying he's not like Spielberg or he's not like some of these other directors, Tim Burton specifically, that he works with the same people and they've developed this visual style that you're like, oh, this is a Tim Burton movie or this is a Spielberg movie. But he does inherently work with people that bring a very light, bright, or unique, distinct style. Like Lost Boys has a style that I absolutely adore. And I think is really fun, but it's comic booky. And pulp magazine-ish, which is my sensibility. So I could see why in an old studio system that still even pervaded into the 90s that Joel Schumacher would be a logical choice.
Mm-hmm.
Not what I would have done, but that's just me because I'm always character first, not visuals first. That's the story is the story is the story, as George Lucas likes to say. So that's where I would be going with that. But the studio wanted lighter and brighter, and audiences at the time, by commentary, wanted lighter, brighter, more fun. Which I
Well,
inherently,
you definitely get that.
you got a lot lighter and brighter, and you get more fun, or what's designed to be fun, which to me just comes off as silly a lot of the time. And
Yes.
and that is aided by the fact of I think it's ingenious casting. I just don't necessarily like where the character went of Jim Carrey as the Riddler, which I think is a logical choice,
Oh boy.
and I like him in that role if they don't do the what they did with him. I'd love to see him get to take it a little bit more seriously. But a lot of the time on set, half the time it was the direction where, hey, remember people, we're making a cartoon, and you're like, no, it's not what you're doing. You are making a
Yeah.
film, is adapting a comic book, which at the time was taken
Yeah.
very seriously and respectfully, and did a lot of cool stuff. So it just makes no sense whatsoever that this was the choice.
Just to cover the box office part
Yes.
of it. So domestically, we got 184 million. The next closest, Apollo 13, 172 million. And then rounding out the top five was Toy Story, Pocahontas, and Ace Ventura.
No Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, what a shame. Parents didn't do enough to get their kids to
Yeah.
that movie.
And then worldwide, $336 million.
It's a lot of money back then.
Yeah, I mean that's number one for the whole. I'm pretty sure that's top grossing of that year.
Yeah, I would assume it is.
Maybe Toy Story actually took it internationally.
I would assume
I'll
Toy
check
Story
that.
eventually takes it. And obviously, with history, Toy Story has to be the number one grosser
Oh, by far
historically
it
of
has
that
to be.
movie. But
Yep, Toy Story took it apparently worldwide, but still a lot of money.
yeah,
And then okay, so I jumped into the writers of this movie, which was very interesting.
Lee Batchelor and Janet Scott Batchelor.
Yes,
Yeah, they have
and
a
then
very unique vision of this movie.
Akiva Goldsman, who has like one of the strangest careers ever.
He has a lot of up and
Um,
down stuff. We're like, what?
oh yeah, okay. So the the married couple
The Bachelors,
that
yeah.
you just mentioned, I have no idea how they got this job. It is so strange. They This is their credits before this movie. They had one episode of some random TV show called The Equalizer, who had no stars in it. They had two shows of a show called McGee and Me, which this is the I wrote it down because it's the craziest fucking description I've ever heard. This is the series description on IMDb. This series is intended to help Christian children grow in the Lord. It's about a boy and his imaginary friend and how they use the Bible to make it through the pitfalls of growing up.
Huh.
And then immediately their next credit is Batman Forever.
What?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. or it's like one more like short film and then this. It's incredibly strange.
That makes
So they must have just had like an in somehow with
no
Warner Brothers
sense.
or with someone who worked on the film. But and then to cover Kiva Goldsman, yeah, such a strange career because he had like such a hot run where he was like looking to be one of the greatest writers at the 90s, early 2000s because he was hitting, well, I shouldn't say there's some guilty pleasures for me in here. He had A Time to Kill, which was a Grisham movie with Matthew McConaughey, which
Yeah.
I really like. Practical Magic, that's a guilty pleasure for me. I really love it with Sandra Bullock. He won an Oscar for A Beautiful Mind, and then he's got iRobot,
Yep.
Cinderella Man, The Da Vinci Code, I Am Legend, which are all huge box office hits.
And they're all pretty good movies.
And then all of a sudden, you hit this. This is the turning point right here. Then you get Angels and Demons, Winter's Tale, which is like some strange, like it's kind of like Groundhog Day with some weird epic love story with Colin Farrell. It sucks.
Uh,
And then he wrote one of the Divergent movies. And then he wrote,
he did, because I just had to sit through those a couple months back with Ab. Ab was like, I'm going to watch Divergent. I went, ah, fuck.
yeah. And then he wrote The Fifth Wave. You remember that movie with Chloe Grace Moretz?
Oh, no, I did not, but it can't be good.
Yeah.
Admittedly, outside of
Oh no,
Kick-Ass,
it sucks.
it can't be
It
good,
sucks.
because outside of Kick-Ass, Chloe Grace Moretz has not been in a lot of good things.
And then he wrote the Rings movie, the like sequel remake.
To the Ring?
Yep. And then he
Okay.
wrote Transformers: The Last Night, which is like I don't know fifth or sixth movie, which dog shit. And then the Dark Tower movie.
Which was not well received.
And then from then on, it's just all Star Trek TV shows, which are also not that well received. So it's like there's just this turning point where it just falls off a cliff so hard.
Huh. That's
Oh, and by
interesting.
the way, it is Equalizer, McGee and Me, and then straight into Batman Forever for the married couple.
Okay,
So I
so
have no idea how they got that
so
job.
I have two comments on them. And then Akiva makes sense as to why they brought Akiva in for
That makes
this.
perfect
It
sense.
makes sense why. What first and foremost, although a lot of writers and a lot of creatives that get into the movie industry, their paths don't make sense. This is something that I've actually discussed in my personal life a lot, where the vast majority of careers are not linear. They don't make sense. For instance,
It's true.
I work or I live and I am married to somebody who has a very linear path. If you want to be a doctor, you need to go to college and get a degree. Therefore, you then need to go to medical school and you need to get a medical degree. Then you need to do your residency of your chosen specialty and then you become a doctor. And sometimes there's a fellowship and other things in there.
Mhm.
Research, whatever. It's very linear. If you say I want to be a doctor, there is step 1, 2, 3, 4, blah 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 blah. When you say I want to work in Hollywood as a writer, that is not a linear path.
That's true. They could have just wrote a spec script and then just got in the door with Warner Brothers.
Correct. That could have been
Yeah.
one way they did it. We all wish it were very much anyone who's a creator who wants to work in the movies wishes it was okay. So you're gonna go and you're gonna do this class and learn it, and then that's gonna kind of open you up to go work as a page or a writing assistant, and you're gonna
Hmm.
write a spec script during this time, and you're gonna sell it off, and you're gonna get into one studio system, and then you're gonna work again, maybe in a writer's room, and blah blah blah. Like we all want that path. That doesn't exist. Some people just
Or
have.
very, very rarely.
Or yeah, or very rarely does that actually happen. You usually need to get 17 different breaks before you find something that actually allows you to work in that
Yeah.
capacity on a consistent basis. So there's that for the Bachelors. That's it's not as if their story is uncommon. It's just wild to think. I don't think it's arguable just because there wasn't a lot of franchises at that time that Batman is the biggest franchise of the 90s.
Yeah.
And to think that you did 3 episodes of television which were not we're not talking X-Files, we're not talking
No.
Seinfeld, we're not
They're
talking
just random
Cheers.
ass shows.
They're just rando shows. We're not talking about the big hit shows of the time or something that was really unique and avant-garde for the time. We're talking about
Hmm.
some random ass shows, and to get that job is wild. And one could say underqualified, but you never truly know for the writer because you never know how much stuff they've actually done behind the scenes. There's
True.
one. Two, one approach that I think actually works for me is in interviews since with Batman Forever. Like, because they do such a good job of cataloging the production of these movies. Was the Bachelors have both gone on record saying that we know that they're going to probably bring in somebody else to come clean up the script and make it as studio friendly as possible. So we look at it as it's our jobs to put as much fun and enjoyable, crazy things in the movie as possible. Because then we know what will stick and what won't.
Hmm.
And in some ways, although that could be garnered as silly because you're like, well, then you're not writing for what actually is the finished product.
Yeah.
At the same time, I kind of appreciate it because there's a reality to that. Where they're just like, well, why don't we just try some stuff? And then we know they're going to bring someone else in. Very rarely is there one writer on a movie anymore. There's always 3, 4, 5, 72 of them.
Yeah.
Or the writers' rooms in these franchises, that which is why half the time the
Yeah.
franchises people don't
Especially,
like.
I was gonna say, especially these big franchises now.
I mean, right before this, I was watching a movie about the what could have been the Star Wars Episode 7. And they went to a fucking writer's room after hiring one guy to write everything who it wasn't working for Disney. So they went to a writer's room. I was like, this is the fucking problem. There's no cohesive linear thought.
Yeah.
And that's why people get pissed at these franchises because it's just like, can we not just follow a fucking through line? Jesus Christ. But nonetheless. So I give them a lot of credit for that. I know they at one time had Edward Nigma had a pet rat Sydney. They had more to do in the weird final hourglass building that's on an island that somehow raises up hundreds of feet into the air. They had random
Hmm.
stuff where like there was more to do there. Uh, but both them and Akiva have said that the draw was we get to retell the origin story, which is so odd to me.
Yeah. I wrote that down. I was like, we're doing this again. The obligatory parent murder scene. Like,
So
why?
so here's something I before we I know we're doing a lot of preamble, but I think this is all really worthwhile knowledge, and this is what people are going to
Oh,
actually want to hear.
we're jumping around. Yeah.
People actually want to hear this because they get to learn new shit half the time, right?
Oh, by the way, I should mention the only other big credit that they have is Pompeii, a movie with Kit Harington.
Ugh.
So, not a great track record.
Yeah, not so great. Rough. I mean, more power to them. They've had more success than 99% of the people that want to be writers. So you got to give them
True.
that credit. Is it
They got a movie made.
they got movies made, man, and you got to give them the credit for that. Again, I think they could be really fun people to just if you're gonna do like a writer's room to get ideas before writing a script. I have no issue with the writers' room to get ideas, but I have an issue with writers'
Sure, a
rooms.
story by. Yeah.
I have no issue with that. I can't stand when it's writers' room and then two or three of them are tasked. Okay, now you take all of this and put it in the final script, even though we've all brought our own scripts. And then they're just Frankenstein monsters. But a story by got no issue with that. Get as many ideas as you possibly can to make the best movie possible. What makes no sense to me about this movie is it's essentially just a soft reboot, but there's too much of the past in it to say it's not part of a series, but there's not enough in it to actually make it feel like it's part of this series.
Yeah, they do go out of their way to mention a couple times, like Catwoman and
Uh,
stuff.
Well, I have it written down. There are four things about this movie that are actually references or ties to the past. You start with
Okay.
you start with a rendition of the Michael Keaton batsuit. You just have nipples on it.
Okay.
You get the Catwoman reference by Nicole Kidman, which,
Mm-hmm.
all due respect to Nicole Kidman, because she looks beautiful in this film.
She does look good.
God damn, does she look good. And I will. It's this movie and Practical Magic where I just look at. We've shared that story
Yes.
of good old Mark Nelson on the show before. I can't. I don't know how anyone could look at these two films and not go, God damn. But that's a different story altogether. So I will never trust his judgment on that one, or would have trusted his judgment. You have those two, and then you have Michael Goff and Pat Hingle as Alfred and Commissioner Gordon, respectively. Other than that, this whole movie is different. The Batcave is different. All the gadgets are different. The music's
Yeah.
different. The fucking mansion's different.
Okay,
Gotham's
so
different. Everything else is different.
one of the things I was going to ask you, because I haven't watched Batman 89 or Batman Returns, specifically because I know we're going to end up watching them eventually.
Sure.
Do they not weave in the original Batman theme at all in this movie?
No,
Okay.
it's bothersome because I think it's truly one of the greatest themes ever created.
I actually do really like the music, the theme to in this movie, but yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't at least carry the other one into this one.
So here's what I will say. I have the first note. I think you're spot on. It makes zero sense that you don't keep that score whatsoever, or any of the music, because my second note on this film, besides the Tim Burton production, also known as fans that are thinking this is too different, Tim approved this. Please don't burn us at the stake for this. Score is good, but it's not Elfman original quality. Danny Elfman's music in the first two is so goddamn good and really, really hits home a lot of the qualities of Batman, especially at that time. That it's just tremendous. The other thing is this: you're still on the tail end of. You're still, yeah, you're still in the wave of Batman the Animated Series, which is still to this day considered one of the best pieces of animation ever done. Is that series, specifically from a television standpoint, which they don't have it exactly the same, but they pretty much have a very similar rendition of the Danny Elfman music because Danny Elfman writes it to be similar. So you're still in that, which is making Batman even more popular for kids at that time.
Yeah.
And it's being taken seriously because, goddamn, they premiered that in prime time. That's how popular Batman was at the time. They're like, we're going to put this 30-minute cartoon in prime time on Fox. So it doesn't make any sense to not have that score and to go without it. Or to at least start
Yeah.
with it and kind of morph it throughout. Maybe do your own rendition of some notes and then get some new stuff. Then by the end, you can transition to, okay, this is the new era of Batman. Because
Yeah,
throughout,
yeah,
if you know the series, there's a lot of moments that are way too similar, but they're different. So you're like, what are we doing?
that's kind of the one of the things that they always do throughout all the Harry Potter movies is they keep all the original John Williams stuff. They just morph it in some kind of way,
Yeah.
which is always nice.
Well, it fits the themes of the movies. It fits the themes of the stories they're telling. It hits the mood very well.
Yeah,
And Danny Elfman's score to Batman is legitimately iconic. You can go
yeah,
anywhere and people, if you play it, people will be like, oh, it's Batman. And and the funny part is, from Batman 89, it's not even my favorite piece of music from Batman 89. My favorite piece of music is called Journey into Mystery, and or Descent into Mystery, I think, something like that. It's like a minute 45, and it's when he's driving Vicky Vale in the Batcave after saving her, and it's just winding through roads in the Batmobile. But it just keeps building and building and building and building and building to make the myth of the Batmobile, of the Batcave, of Batman bigger. So it doesn't make any sense that we didn't go in that direction. It very much feels like the studio said, we don't want anything to do with Tim Burton, but we want you to keep it close to Tim's because we know it was successful. We just want to make it clear Tim's not involved anymore. It's just
hmm
weird. It's just very, very, very strange. But goddamn, this movie is silly.
yeah. I, the first note I wrote was I think it's maybe the opening line
It's the first line.
is, or I guess the second line is the one I wrote down. That I'll get your life through.
I hate both of them.
And I was like, "Oh God, here we go."
I have.
And luckily they don't go further than that. Like I was expecting that throughout the whole thing, and luckily that's probably the most egregious line in the whole movie is the first two lines.
So I have it here that the whole production very much feels like I will give this movie this credit before I shit on them for this piece of dialogue. This whole movie is presented as if the studio and the movie makers trust the audience to know, which is something a lot of movies don't do, especially now. They spoon feed them everything. This movie
Yeah.
very much just trusts you to know shit. They're like, they'll get it. They'll get it. They spoon feed them other parts of exposition that are problematic. But other stuff, they're like, yeah, they'll get it. They'll get what we're going for. They'll come with us on the ride. So I give them that credit. But that's set in the first one where it's like, you know, Batman starts in the big open of the bat symbol, and we're setting the scene of the dark, chaotic, brooding world of Gotham. Batman returns, you get the whole backstory of the Penguin throughout the open, and it's sad as
Mhm.
fuck, and it's weird, and Paul Rubens is in it, and it's just crazy. And in this one, you get the opening credits with the new score, and then it starts with a fucking joke. That's the
Yeah.
first goddamn line of the
I-
movie.
Well, it felt like I was like, did they film this for like a some kind of TV promo advertising
It
thing? And
feels
for some
very much
reason,
like that.
they just kept it in the movie. I was like, why is this here?
So I did not recall that in that time. It just annoyed me. I think you're right if they did it. Because remember, do you remember those frosted mugs
Yes.
from McDonald's? This is this movie.
Yeah.
It's Batman Forever.
Yeah. I remember those mugs well.
I mean, those are iconic at this point for 90s
They
kids.
are.
I mean, I still, as much as I'm like, I don't know about this movie, I want to track down a set for like a future bar. Just be like,
I bet you
nice.
can get them for like $20
Oh,
on eBay.
I've found them at many a St. Vincent de Paul in my life and many a Goodwill in my life. So I'm sure I can track them down. Because I love some of those old collector things that McDonald's used to do. Those were fun. But, having said that, I think you might be right that this was kept in to make a McDonald's happy or make someone
Like,
happy.
I understand why you film it for a TV promo, but why keep it in the movie itself?
Yeah,
That's the confusing part
it's
about it.
bothersome because immediately it's a tone setter. And immediately the tone is set, hey, this isn't your daddy's Batman. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And it's honestly it's really like completely different than most of the other stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
It's not like a continuous that compared to the rest of the dialogue, that's the furthest thing away from everything else.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
Like I said, it is that's as far as it goes in terms of how bad it gets. There is other shit that's bad, but that's the most egregious it gets.
Yeah. It's bothersome. And I
Yeah.
think the silliness goes throughout the entire first action set piece. They start relatively hot. They go through an action piece right away. You get your main players involved immediately, or most of your main players, your three or your five.
Mhm.
3 or 5 main players are here, in which Batman's introduced. He flies out of the sky. Gotham. They've transitioned from the public is weary of Batman, but they know him as a hero, to everyone sees Batman and just loses their minds and just accepts, hey, Batman's gonna save us.
Yeah, this is
It's
much more light.
This is very 1950s Batman. One of the producers, Michael Uslan, he's credited as a producer on every single Batman film because he created the Batman production company to get movies made. So he and his partner Benjamin Melnick are credited pretty much as producers on every single Batman film ever because you have to have them on board to do that. And he's a big comic historian and all these other things. He's a fucking nerd and he's salt of the earth nerd, so we appreciate him. But he's very much said he looks at every movie as kind of a time capsule of part of the Batman myth. And this is very 1950s silly, zany
Yeah.
sci-fi Batman.
Well, they almost treat him like Superman in this movie.
A little bit, yeah. Where we're really happy and we're proud to have Batman and he's our
Yeah.
guy and he would never do anything wrong. I mean, that even happens at the end of this sequence. We'll talk about more of the sequence, but the end of the sequence, he carves up half the fucking Statue of Liberty. I mean, it's not his
Yeah.
fault. It's Two-Face's fault. And the report in the next scene is, due to a valiant effort by Batman, their crime was stopped. However, Harvey Two-Face is still on the loose. It's like, you immediately just paint him as, he would never do something like that to us. This has to be Two-Face's fault. There's not even
Yeah.
the hey, Batman did help and save that guy, but a lot of destruction
Although
came along with it.
I will say I do kind of miss that way of looking at it because like I'm so sick of like everyone
Trying to do the two
looking
side
at
stuff.
yeah like oh collateral damage Man of Steel blah, blah, blah. I'm like I'm so sick of that shit already. I'm
So
just like
I
I get it, but it's just so annoying at this point.
I partially agree as long as it's not so egregious like Man of Steel,
No,
where
I completely agree on Man of Steel, but
where
like
when it violates
it's not.
when it violates the character, that
Yeah, that's
bothers me.
true.
When Superman's just like, I don't give a fuck about who's down there. We're just gonna fight. I'm like, just make the effort to make it look like you're trying to get out of the city, and
Yeah,
people won't have that commentary.
it's just like the next 10 years they had to throw in like lines of dialogue to try to explain like why.
Especially Marvel. Marvel very much was like, we ain't going near that. We got to get rid of
Yeah,
the. And the
And I
one
was like,
time
"Oh my god, who cares?"
and the one time that they didn't, they used it as a major plot point. Sokovia,
Yeah,
and that's what led to Civil
yeah.
War. Yeah. But nonetheless, Jesus Christ, I can't believe Civil War is almost 10 years old at this point. Getting fucking old. But
Movie sucked.
wow, that's a hot take. A lot of people think that's one of the best Marvel movies.
No,
I
I shouldn't
can't
say it sucked.
I
I
can't
it's I just it's mediocre to me.
I can't wait to get to Marvel eventually with you because it's going to be a lot of fun because people are going to hate you.
Yeah, probably.
But nonetheless, they just set this up so quickly. You can tell it's so silly. You meet Chase Meridian, so named because she plays in both worlds of the black and white and all this other stuff, and hence the reason she is a psychologist and she is this. It doesn't help that I've seen pretty much all the behind the scenes stuff to this movie, because then I understand what they're going for better than probably most movie viewers do. First of all, super hot immediately, and she's presented like a very 30s to 50s femme fatale looking character,
Yes.
which hits the vibe of the movie pretty well. I'll give them that. They have their dumb
I
little
just I
exchange.
wish they would I wish they would reflect that within the cinematography and go for like a noir kind of look. That'd be nice.
Yes. And you're already starting to get, again, it's another shot that's erasing history or trying to wash history away. You can tell from the first time you see Batman swooping into Gotham in that scene, this is a different Gotham. This is
Mhm.
neon light bright Gotham.
Yeah, I was gonna say that gothic look is nowhere to be seen in this.
This is not Tim Burton's Art Deco Gothic world anymore. It's still very Art Deco in ways, but it's very much. I think actually Joel Schumacher's entire production team with these, Gotham's a vibe. It's cool. It's just not what I prefer for Gotham.
At times, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
I think the production design. If you want to watch Batman Forever, or as much as I despise it, I said this in the Oscars episode. As much as it's a horrible movie, the production design in Batman and Robin is impeccable. It looks fantastic, and it's a vibe. Problem is, the rest of the movie
Wouldn't go
sucks,
that far.
but it's a vibe and it's very very cool. So it's very different. They have a stupid exchange right away. Bats aren't rodents. Oh really? Okay, I'm gonna go up. I'm Batman. I'm gonna go up an elevator. I'm gonna shock these guys with a little zapper gun. Another guy's gonna come at me. I'm gonna look concerned for no reason. Then I'm gonna hold him and throw him into the zapper guys. And then a really stupid sound effect of is gonna happen. And I'm just gonna run off, and that's gonna be the first fight. You're like, God damn it!
I I don't have any problem with any of the like set pieces at all.
It's too silly for
I just
me. It's just too silly.
I just have a well, I do have a problem with the way they're edited because no shot lasts for more than 2 seconds.
Very much a lot of kinetic energy in this movie by editing, but that's not always good.
Like I wish it had the way they shot the newer Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, where there are longer takes within the action.
Yeah.
I much prefer that style where they're not trying to hide the stunts
Yes.
within editing.
Yeah.
I prefer that where or like the most egregious one is in Taken 3 where there's like 18 cuts within Liam Neeson trying to jump a fence. It's hilarious. But like that's kind of what this feels like at times, especially that fight in when Robin's fighting all the glow in the dark guys.
Which is those? That's a rad ass gang, by the way. But yes, I get that.
Yeah. That's the only problem I have with the fighting in this is like the editing is really really poor in the action.
It could be better. It's very quick, as you said, and there's a lot of takes to facials for like 2 seconds. Ironically enough, again, I think it's a little too comic booky. I think they thought we're gonna make like
Yeah.
comic book panels in here, and it's one of the ways that you go, hey, that's really cool in theory, in the idea, and maybe once or twice, it's kind of fun. You're like, oh shit, cool. But if you do that all the time, you're trying too hard to make one medium another medium, and the reason that they're different mediums is because they don't inherently work together.
Yeah. It would probably work if like if this was like an Edgar Wright movie,
Yes.
because he has such a strong style, whereas Joel Schumacher leans towards a style but doesn't go far enough into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Um,
is interesting.
but in terms of that, like too comic booky, I hated when like was he a security guard or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh my! Anytime he talked, I was like, "Oh God, just shut him up,
Yes.
please." Or he's
Yes.
like, "Oh no, it's boiling acid."
Yeah.
Like, oh God, and it's like that. That is straight up comic book. Like I can see that on the page, in the little bubble. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
just don't talk,
Well, it's old.
please. We
It's
can
old
understand
comic
it.
book too, because new comic books, unless they're trying to inherently go retro, they don't really do that. They
Yeah,
they show it and then they find a better way dialogue wise to describe it, or they go to the
you don't
internal
even need
monologue,
dialogue.
or you go to
Anyone
the
can
internal
understand
monologue.
what's happening.
Yeah, and then Batman uses his hearing aid to get out. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
another part where it's like you don't need the dialogue. Where he goes, "Hey, that's my hearing aid."
Uh huh. And then Batman
God.
uses one grappling hook to get the whole safe back into the building, and you're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? And he's just like, you know how much I care about your safety? You're gonna ride this safe through a hole in the wall, and it's gonna work.
Yeah.
That's one of the most ironically unearned shows of faith in Batman's ability I've ever seen. Like, there's a lot of times that I give Batman way too much credit as a character in the movies as he's being presented because I just go, it's Batman. It's gonna work. It's Batman.
It Batman shows a lot of faith in his grappling hooks in this one.
Yes, he does. And I
Especially
don't.
at the end.
Oh yeah, and it's just like the safe moment is one of those. I'm like, that's not earned at all. He shot a grappling hook through a wall. And we're supposed to assume that wall is going to be perfectly fine with the weight of a safe and a guy riding on top of it, and it's going to work perfectly to swing back into the building. And they're very much just like, it's Batman. They'll get it.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
one of those moments.
Batman.
Yeah.
I, you suspend your disbelief, I guess. And in this movie, you really have to do that quite a bit.
Yeah. And then, in what world does a helicopter have a goddamn steering wheel?
I didn't notice that.
Where he puts the fucking security device over the steering wheel. They cut. I saw because I was paying
Oh,
attention to it because it bothered me so much. They have a piece cut off, I think, on one side, so it's not a steering wheel. It's just a steering mechanism. But I'm like, that's not how helicopters work, dude. Like, helicopters have panels or handles, and they go
must have
up
been.
and down, and they have sticks in old school. They don't have
Yeah,
steering
I was gonna say
wheels.
usually they have sticks.
They don't have fucking steering wheels. And I know maybe someone who's going to watch this is going to see this comment and go, dude, the specs on this one are this. And I'm like, fuck off. You found one to make me wrong. Okay, but still. Especially in the same year, you get GoldenEye, where they show the entire internal mechanisms of a really advanced helicopter. And it ain't that.
Mhm.
And you're like, God damn it, guys.
Yeah. Talk about a movie I'd rather be talking about.
GoldenEye's so good. We'll talk about GoldenEye eventually. Because I
Or
love
any of
Golden.
those other top five movies.
I fucking love GoldenEye. GoldenEye's great. I do think we got to get into the monthly commentary track so we can just cover some movies that were like, yeah. So I think it's all. I think the whole opening sequence is way too silly, and it continues with the introduction of Jim Carrey and the Riddler.
Okay, we need to talk about Jim Carrey for a bit. They obviously just did not rein him in at all.
No,
They were just like,
they told Jim we want
Jim,
you living
just go
color.
for it.
They told Jim we want you to be in living color, Dumb and Dumber, and The Mask put together. Jim Carrey.
Yeah, like I honestly don't see them giving him direction in the slightest.
If they did, it's not logical.
It's not, hey Jim, why don't we take this down a notch?
No, and the
It's
thing
not
is,
that.
this is I'm of two minds of this. Both disagree with what they did, so I want to make that clear. I don't know how much of this is. Do you remember the stories back in the day from like Man on the Moon when he's playing Andy Kaufman and he's too method with it, and
Yeah.
and he's too method in some of these, and part of hence the reason we get part of the modern sad Jim Carrey interviews where he doesn't know who he is half the time because he just gets
Yeah.
lost in
Well, I
parts and stuff. I don't know how much of that is on this film because again, it's still within the first year of his big break. He got In Living Color, and then he gets Mass, Dumb and Dumber, and Ace Ventura, all in '94.
yeah, I was gonna say that's the reason why they're not reining him in is that year was crazy.
That year was the year of Jim Carrey, and then
So
this
yeah,
is the follow up
I
to get
wrote
him
it
to the
down.
blockbuster era of Jim Carrey. Yeah,
Yeah, you have February Ace Ventura, which made 70 million. In July, you have The Mask, which made 117 million, and then you have Dumb and Dumber in December, which made 127 million. It's like, yeah, there's that makes sense why they're not reining them in.
all of which success is very much on the back of Jim Carrey. There's not.
Yes.
I mean, I love Jeff Daniels, but people aren't going to Dumb and Dumber because of Jeff Daniels. They're not,
No, there's a clear reason why those movies are working.
and it's because of the tone Jim Carrey was just hitting really well in the '90s. And this is his first true blockbuster. But yeah, I'm not sure how much of that is we're just going to let him cook because it's working, and how much of that is Jim Carrey maybe pushing the envelope so much that they just go, okay.
Well, one of the one of the thoughts I had is like maybe it would work if he just stayed at the level he is, but then Tommy Lee Jones goes at a way lower level and isn't chewing scenery. That would be maybe that could show some juxtaposition between the villains and show some dynamic there. But when you
Yeah.
both get them just in the same scene chewing the scenery both at the same time, it's just like, what is going on? This is chaotic.
Well, what's hilarious to me is usually the Batman movies are accused of being too dominated by their villains. And the villains are half the time the most intriguing and best parts of the movie. That is not the case
Yeah.
here. This and
No,
what's
they're
funny is the movie is known because of Carrie's Riddler and Jones's Two Face, but of the core five, those two are the two worst ones.
yeah.
And it's hilarious to me because it's the
Well,
polar opposite of what Batman usually is, which is the balance between things. Where like I
well, the
love
funny thing
I think
is,
Robert Pattinson does a great job, but I think some could even argue Paul Dano's Riddler sometimes steals the show.
he's the best actor in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, Dark Knight. Obviously, people have been saying Heath Ledger is the guy forever because of that. Batman Begins, even you have Liam Neeson as fucking Ra's al Ghul, and you're kind of like, yeah. Or Cillian Murphy does a really good job as Scarecrow. It goes all the way back to Nicholson.
Well, Yeah, in this movie, you have the two best actors, Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones, giving the two worst performances.
Yeah, it's really. I have here for Tommy Lee Jones. For someone who's usually such a serious actor, he's way too silly and maniacal in this. He needs to be more menacing. Two Face is supposed to be menacing and fearsome and frightful, not over the top silly with a gravelly
Yeah,
voice.
it's so weird too, because I'm like, he doesn't seem like the type of guy that would want to play that kind of role where he's chewing the scenery, but apparently he did. I mean, 2 years before this, he won an Oscar for The Fugitive, where he's fantastic.
Yeah, and he's
It's
just
really an
and he's famous for
that's an
I don't care.
yeah, that's an understated performance. So it's like I don't know why he would choose to do this the way he did, but I mean, I guess when your director is shouting out, "Hey, this is a cartoon," maybe that's the the way you choose to go.
Well, his inspiration was Jekyll and Hyde, which is logical for Two Face,
Okay.
but
But
I,
he doesn't show another side. He just shows one side.
yeah, they're both fucked in the head.
Mis-
Jekyll, it's just one talks close to normal, and one talks with the big gravelly voice and the over the topness. And I think that's not understanding the character well enough. Two Face, the best renditions of Two Face are in the Long Halloween comic books, and then the Dark Knight does it really well, where they're supposed to be their goals are somewhat in unison. It's just their avenues to get to the goal, and I'm talking about the two personalities of Two Face. Their goals are in unison. It's just the way each personality tries to get there is wildly different. That's fine. But it's supposed to be he still has that Harvey Dent, I believe in good, I believe in the rule of law, I believe in all of this. And then Two Face is the one that's
Yeah.
like, fuck it, let's just shoot everybody and kill everybody because then there's no problems. And the Arkham games do a really good
Yeah.
job with Two Face. This is not that.
I'm just gonna look up if there's anything in between The Fugitive and this.
He's got to have something
I'm
in that.
curious. Okay, so he does. Okay. Quite a bit actually. So he's got oh, he actually did have JFK the year before The Fugitive too, where he's pretty outlandish in that as well.
Okay.
He's got The Client, which is a Grisham movie. Blue Sky, which is that's another performance which is like Jessica Lange won an Oscar for it. But that's like incredibly understated. And then he's got Natural Born Killers, which I don't really remember him in, but I know everyone else in that movie's going for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then into this. So, maybe just getting swept up in all the other movies he did between
Maybe, but
there.
it's not good. It's not good at all. I think I know we're already going pretty crazy throughout this movie, and we're still not even out of the first act. I think it might just be better to successfully go through kind of characters and then maybe some moments to cover this movie because we don't definitely need to cover this entire movie.
Oh, I don't have that many notes actually, so I've been kind of jumping around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the introduction of the I think the best part of Carrie's turn is that first one. When you first meet him and he's so egotistical he believes he deserves answers and he deserves praise from Bruce Wayne. I think that's interesting. And
Yeah.
there's some menace there. But then it's just gone. Then it's just I want to create chaos, but I want to do it wearing green pajamas and
Yeah, and it
silliness.
just like his plot line is just too sci-fi,
Yes.
honestly.
Way too much
It just
sci-fi. The
doesn't
the brain
it
drain is
just
stupid, especially
it
for
just doesn't
95.
fit.
The sci-fi-ish nature of he's gonna manipulate brain waves and then grow smarter. Like if you want to say he was able to create a device where you can feel like in virtual reality, although too much, I might give it to you. I might give it to you.
Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because I actually like that idea. I just don't like the way they portray it in this.
I hate the idea, but I will give you the VR headset idea. I'll give you that. Because you're like, okay, it makes you kind of, it's like, okay. Like, maybe I can give you that one. But then it sends laser lights all the way across Gotham, and no one
Oh, I hate that
questions it.
aspect of it.
And then he just sits in a chair and he's like, I'm getting smarter.
I
That's
meant more like
dumb as
I like the
fuck.
idea. I like the idea that he can scan people's brains and then use their weaknesses against them.
That's interesting. Sure. Or like I think what's funny is had they went with just the headset of it can project your fantasies because it can read your brainwaves.
Hmm.
Sure. When it starts with the TV show idea,
Yeah,
that's dumb.
yeah, and it also and his rise to power is like immediate, where it's just like one day he's this crazy scientist, and then literally a week later he's like Elon Musk level powerful.
So I will say this. I had the same questions. This movie would theoretically have to take place over at least, and I'm being generous here, at least 12 months to 18
At
months.
least, yes.
Which, if you look at it that way, I think actually aids the movie. Because then you could infer, okay, Dick Grayson's been frustrated for months that he knows about Batman. He's trying to help Bruce, and Bruce says no. So it fosters this kind of resentment or whatever. It's logical then that you would see Chase Meridian, who starts by just trying to throw herself at Batman, which is that shit would never fly today unless it was like a comedy second character, not the main female character in the movie. She's just
Yeah.
she's just so hot for Batman, it's ridiculous. And then when they slowly get her to be more interested in Bruce, which I also think I don't like a love triangle between Bruce, Batman, and a female character on screen. I think that again, I think that's too comic booky.
Sure.
I actually kind of prefer when they do a Bruce has a love interest, Batman has a love interest, the two worlds don't intercede, and then the character has internal conflict. That it never bothers me. Because it's kind of like it plays into the almost multiple personality kind of duality of him as a human being, and he has to reconcile and decide what part of his psyche is more important. That doesn't bother me. But when there's a love triangle and you're like, Jesus Christ, we're in a 2 hour movie and the guy's walking around in green pajamas with laser beams over the fucking city. Goddamn, this is not good. That shit would never fly today with her just being like, oh, black rubber. And you're like, what the fuck is up with you, lady?
Yeah. Also that sexy scene where they're on top of the building and she calls him with the bat signal.
Yeah.
That ADR is insane. Like it is so clearly recorded later and it's so clearly like Joel Schumacher was just like say it as sexy as you can. And then like there'll be shots where it's a wide shot but you can clearly see their mouth is not moving to the words they're saying. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is a huge studio movie. What are you guys doing? You can't hide this better.
Yeah. Just cut it in a different way. Just show a different angle. whatever you got to do.
Exactly. I was.
The other
It
thing
was
is
really
this is
sloppy.
I don't know if they're just like scarred, but since it's been so long for you, do you remember the last shot of Batman Returns?
No, definitely not.
Okay, so the last
Um,
shot of
unless it's the penguin floating away
no, it
with
is
his
not
little
that.
buddies.
So
Okay.
the end of Batman 89, it has Batman overlooking the city and the bat signal lights up. So in Batman Returns, they wanted to do something similar because they just felt the movie didn't end with something to really push it forward and make you want to see Batman again. It kind of just felt like a sad ending for kind of everybody, where they've all gone through some personal trauma. So, with very little time left in the game, they had to get costumes out of storage, parts of the set out of storage, and the last shot is the bat signal goes up and it's revealed Catwoman is still alive and she's overlooking the bat symbol. And
Oh, okay.
that one
Yep.
shot, because it's thought of after the fact, cost them $250,000.
Okay.
And
I
it's
do remember that shot
and
now.
it's
Yes.
literally just you don't even see Michelle Pfeiffer. You just see the back with the cat ears. So I don't think Michelle Pfeiffer's coming back for that one shot, right?
Probably
It's
not. I would
just
hope not.
it's some woman from the neck up just going like, or from the shoulders up, just going looking at a light. And I swear the studio might just be like, I'm sick of this stupid useless money spending. We ain't doing it. We're not going back for these shots. And this is a shot where you are correct. They should have just been like, just call them both back in and just re-record the lines in a real shot, or
Well, it makes me
cut it, or
it,
find something to do with it that's not this.
well that the ADR just makes me think that that was probably reshoots, maybe because they just didn't have enough chemistry. That would be my guess,
Yeah.
because that happens quite a bit actually on movies. I know it happened on the original Top Gun,
Hmm.
where Tom Cruise and what's her face just didn't have any chemistry at all, so they had to come back.
Kelly McGillis,
Yeah,
which
they
is
had to
hilarious
do
because it works so well in the movie, but to think that
they
they
had
have
to
no
come back and
chemistry is like hilarious.
they had to do reshoots to come back and put in scenes where to put in, especially like little parts where they could add some romance.
uh
So maybe that's a reshoot, and that's why it's like a little sloppy. They didn't have enough time.
well, also, again, I feel like it's kind of a half measure. The whole scene, the whole scene is her throwing at herself at Batman, and by the end, you're supposed to infer that Batman kind of wants to go into the temptation.
Oh
So
yeah,
if you're trying to
is she
hide,
lingerie? Looks like it.
I mean, she's certainly wearing something that's meant to be stereotypically sexy.
Yes.
So if it were me and I was stuck with that problem, and the whole goal is to make the two of them look hyper sexually attracted to each other, I would have just hid some of the dialogue with the two of them with shots looking at each other's body. And just like Batman looking and being like, huh,
You would think so.
okay. And the dialogue's playing during that. So you can infer, okay, well, she's saying this, he's saying that, whatever.
Yeah,
But
use editing to your advantage.
yes, that's what I would
But
have done if I was stuck in that problem. Because I wouldn't have shot it that way to begin with. Because I think that's just a weird scene. But if I have to be doing it and I'm stuck in that pickle, I would have been like, well, if we're going to do it,
yeah,
go
but the age old thing,
100%.
the age old adage is if you got stars, you film their faces.
Yeah, that's not necessarily worth it in this
No, it's
case.
not. It's just always been what people say.
Yeah, just looking through my notes here for this because.
My next note is not until Robin shows up at Wayne Manor. So whatever you got in between that.
So I will say this. I think the little lore building creation scenes of the Riddler are actually pretty fun. they work for this version of the character. I'm not saying they're awesome in terms of we're
Like
gonna
his
build the
little
Riddler.
den.
Yeah, his little den. I think that'd be a really fun scene to a little fun sequence to build, and that's to be really fun for production design to get to play with that idea. And I
Mhm.
like that he's already in this weird place, which gives him the ideas that he can do more weird shit. I think that's kind of fun, and I think those are actually pretty interesting. And we'll get to the point where you're at. I think the circus sequence is pretty damn good.
Oh wait, I actually do have one note in between that. Going off that den part where he writes the first riddle. I wrote, "Good thing Nigma didn't deliver that riddle to the mailbox. That would have been illegal. It didn't have any postage on it, and he's not an authorized carrier."
Oh boy. Well, we
Just
do
had
need
to
to
throw
go.
that in
We
there.
do need to go to the postal worker for the expertise here.
Yes.
So I will say this. I think the circus sequence is exquisite. I think the whole thing works really well.
I wouldn't say that just because what? Why is Two Face raising the bomb? What's his plan there?
I'm not sure.
Like that was the confusing part. I was like, if you're trying to kill these people, why are you raising the bomb? Just keep it at floor level.
Yeah, okay, I can give you that one.
Unless maybe he's trying to collapse the
The
ceiling.
building and the I would assume he's trying to collapse the building in that place. It's not well told enough for an audience to get that. So I'll give you that. I guess if we're trying to reason this out, that makes sense. It's an old building
Yeah,
with these different steel girders and shit. Take the girders out, the whole thing collapses.
yeah, maybe. I just thought of that actually.
I think that's a really well done sequence to introduce Robin.
I do like that big ass prop though of the bomb. That's pretty pretty fun.
So I think the whole sequence is done so well because it's shot really well for kinetic energy. It moves quickly. It's not one of these other sequences in the movie where you're like, fuck, let me get through this part.
A little too much flying acrobat stuff, but
I'm okay with it solely because it's the first time you see Robin, so you're kind of establishing he has skills. But yes, I understand. I can understand the
I just
critique. I'm okay with it.
I would have just put like cut like the first part of it and then just put Robin's part in there without the net thing, you know?
I think you show
Just
one or
cut out
two.
that first part.
I think you show one or two, but I think it's really good because of all the interplay. You get Two Face doing his Two Face shit. You get Bruce and Chase together. You keep seeing flashbacks back to, or not flashbacks, but cuts back to Nigma's apartment where he's inspired by the chaos and he's like, oh, that's my answer. Two Face, Mad Dog. I'll go after him and get him for help. I think all that is really well done. And then the fact that Robin is shown to be a hero, he's shown to be heroic immediately is
Hmm.
really smart. And also showing Bruce, no one hears it in the chaos, so it kind of doesn't count from that perspective. But the fact that he's like, oh no, people are going to die. I will shout that I am Batman, and I will publicly show some of my skills to fight as
Yeah.
Batman, I think is really smart. Because then it shows he's not so protective of the identity that he's willing to just let people die to protect the identity. He's he's willing to go out and help at his own detriment. I think is really nice.
Is that part where his parents fall, Robin's parents fall on the circus floor? Is that a comic book still?
No, but
Is that like a recreation?
I think it's been done since.
Okay, because that just felt like a recreation shot, you know? How they do that sometimes.
Sure, sure. I can't 100% say that it's never been done in the comics before that because a lot of the reading of Batman I've done has been mostly 80s onward.
Hmm.
of Batman, but I've read enough and I've done so much history deep dive of Batman starting at 39 that
Okay, but it's not like an iconic.
not to my knowledge.
Okay.
The thing is, this is, you might have a better chance of that being a shot inspired by the animated series, because the animated series
Okay.
does so much with Robin's backstory. Like Robin,
Sure.
there's a two-parter called Robin's Reckoning that was nominated for an Emmy. It's that good. So
Hmm.
uh, it's all about his journey into revenge and all that stuff, which is clearly very heavily inspiring this rendition of Robin. And I think that sequence is great. I think that action sequence, and then the next big one at the hotel are great. So you get character moments, you get interplay, you get all these different dynamics at work, and it shows the magic sometimes of editing, in which we can still get dialogue in here, but we can show things happening simultaneously and make it feel energetic. Those I think are
Hmm.
both really well done. What was your note on him getting to Wayne Manor?
Oh, it's just I wrote with many X question marks. He's supposed to be 17 years old.
Yeah, I don't know about this. That's always been kind of like, what?
Because I looked it up, so he's 24 when they're filming it, but he looks like he's 35 years old.
Yeah, Chris
And it
O'Donnell looks
it,
older than.
and it doesn't help that Chris O'Donnell kind of has looked 35 and still looks 35. Like he kind of has looked the same for 30 years now. So he has aged gracefully, but he looked 35 back then too.
It's kind of like
Like he does not look like a
It's kind of what Seth Rogen always says about himself, where Seth Rogen, when he was 17, looked 30, and then when he was 30, he looked dead. so
yeah, yeah, like he does not look like a teenager at all.
I see. I never interpreted he was a teenager.
But why are they like giving him to Bruce as like a ward kind of thing
To
then?
me, I thought they tried to. I thought they intent. So here's my interpretation. I don't know if they succeed. This is clearly my interpretation of the movie, even going back as a kid watching this film. I always felt it was very much a, this person has nowhere to go. They're a traveling circus performer. They just need a temporary housing, and because of internal guilt of allowing it to happen, Bruce reaches out and says, if the kid needs a place to stay, he can stay here for a little bit to catch himself while he deals with all the red tape and paperwork and all that crap. That's how I always interpret it. I don't know if the movie really succeeds in that, because they're
But
also so willing to say, all right, if you want to go, go.
but
They don't
the
ever do
other
the, hey, you're 17, you're legally my problem, you have to stay here until you're
the other
18.
people at the circus survived. Why wouldn't he just stay with them?
Right, I think they're going for the memories are too painful thing, because then in one of the following scenes, he asks Alfred to throw away his performing outfit. I think
Sure.
that's what they're going for. That's one of those where I think they have a lot of faith in the audience, and that one raises too many questions, especially to people who know Robin's backstory and know he's a kid.
I
So
think they're just like, you know what? Fuck it. We're not explaining this shit.
this
He's
that's what
got to
it
get to Wayne Manor.
that's what it feels like to me. It feels very much like we're just gonna trust the audience that they'll get it. He's got to get there somehow, and
Yeah.
I think they get too many questions there. I do find it interesting. They open with him so well as a hero, where I'm this daredevil performer, but when danger's really happening, I'm this good guy that wants to save everybody. And then what keeps him at Wayne Manor is the temptation of good food and the bribe of a motorcycle. So it's not even like they're really talking sense. Maybe I should give these
Well,
guys a try.
that would make sense if he was a teenager. If
Yeah.
he was actually a
So
teenager.
again, it's contradictory because it's the point is he a teenager or is he
Yeah.
not? And maybe that's how they. Maybe if that's what they were going for, that's how they get around the Nigmatech rise so quickly. Is maybe they just thought the audience will get it. Like, oh, this clearly couldn't happen in a day. Because there's so many
Yeah, maybe.
robberies and random scenes that happen that you have to think this happened over a year and a half, 2 years time. But then you have to make time markers to make it clear that that was the case.
Yeah, they don't do any kind of job to make you aware that there's a time passage
Yeah,
going on.
so that's where there's some issues with that one. I do think the interstitial play between Dick Grayson and Alfred is really good. I really like that Alfred's kind of his
Uh,
guiding light.
I like what's that guy's what's the
Michael Goff?
go- Goff? Yes, I really like his warmth. He's
Yes.
definitely the warmest of the Alfreds.
He is what most comic book fans would probably consider the most accurate Alfred.
Okay.
So his is the really warm, fuzzy parent, and then it's harder to believe that he could do the other stuff that Alfred's actually needed for. Which I'm glad they show him at
Yeah.
the end, at least helping with the riddle, so at least he can do something. Or, they say, oh, he's actually a pretty good mechanic. They never show him do it, so it's just kind of
Yeah.
like hinting at stuff like that. Whereas Michael Caine occasionally gets to help sew Bruce up. He's the sarcastic guide. But he's not
Yeah.
as warm.
He's more wise. Yeah, I actually have no problem with Val Kilmer's performance at all. Like I know a lot of people kind of talk about him as like one of the weaker Batmans, but he's perfectly fine.
I think that's it. I think your wording is exactly it. I think he's good, but I don't think he's stellar. And I don't
Yeah,
think that he is necessarily intriguing. Where,
true. I don't think that's his fault though.
right, and I do know there's a lot of backstage drama with Schumacher and Kilmer. Where Schumacher's been
Ah,
on record saying the two best things Val Kilmer ever did for me was agreeing to be Batman and agreeing to stop being Batman.
no.
So it just didn't work out. Their visions just didn't work out. There's drama on set with stuff like that. And
Well, considering where it went, I would say Val Kilmer
I mean,
probably had the better vision.
he dodged a bullet on that one. I mean,
Yeah,
because the thing is, this is obviously George Clooney is remembered as the worst. That's just obvious.
obviously.
I don't hate his rendition of the really warm and fuzzy Bruce Wayne and the movie star socialite Bruce Wayne. That doesn't bother me.
Yeah,
It's just his Batman is the exact same.
yeah,
And so you're like, well, how am I supposed to buy you're not Batman? Because the audience is with you. They want to buy in. So if your audience is actively going, how could no one figure this out? is
yeah.
is
Val
problematic.
Kilmer, he does do like a little subtle change when he does the Batman voice, I think.
Yes, there's a lot of subtleties to the performance there. And the thing is this is he's not like Michael Keaton and Robert Pattinson both do a really good job with the haunted, guilty Bruce Wayne.
Hmm.
And Michael Keaton especially, God, that opening shot of Michael Keaton in Batman Returns. Chef's kiss is one of the best scenes in Batman history. Where he's just sitting in the dark, waiting, looking almost bored, just going, I have no purpose in life. That signal lights up and his eyes just go and he's just like, I'm Batman now. And you're like, yes! It's
Well,
perfect.
that's top grosser of what
92.
is it, 92?
Yeah, we're going to get there.
Okay.
Trust me.
I was
There's
gonna
no
say,
way this podcast isn't covering Batman Returns.
I was gonna say, because I have not seen that in I don't even know how long.
I mean, we're going to talk about it
Over
in a
15, over 15 years for
Oh,
sure.
Batman Returns is at least annual viewing for me. Because it's always one of my excuses to during the holidays when people are like, "Let's watch a Christmas movie." I'm like, "I got one," because
Yeah.
which we'll talk about in a future episode, quick. But all the Batman, all the people that have played Batman have done something really, really well. I think Val Kilmer does a really good job with Bruce Wayne and does a really good job with Batman, but neither is standout. God damn, they were good at this. They're
Well,
good at
let's
that.
do this real quick. Let's rank your Batman.
Keaton still won. The suit helps Michael Keaton a lot.
Yeah, that suit is pretty great. I
Well,
don't
this,
like, obviously, I don't like the stiff neck part,
yeah.
but that's not his fault.
So I have my top three are Keaton, Affleck, and Pattinson, and I don't know which in which order.
Mine would be Pattinson, Keaton, Christian Bale, Affleck. Who am I missing?
Kilmer
Kilmer,
and Clooney.
and then Clooney's at the bottom,
Unless
obviously.
we want to add Adam West in there, where that feels way too
Yeah,
different.
and that's the thing is like those five minus George Clooney. I'm fine with all of them.
Yeah, so that's the thing is what's funny to me is I think the Dark Knight and the Dark Knight trilogy is by far the best quality of everything put together.
Yeah,
And ironically enough, I love Christian's Batman. I love it. But there's still that part of me that goes, Affleck did really well, or Pattinson did this really, really well.
I just consider like at least Christian Bale's given enough to do, and Affleck's never given enough to do.
That's the thing is I think Affleck's the most believable Batman as a person.
Yeah, I would agree.
He's 6'4", built like a brick shithouse in that movie, and he's shown to be doing the work to do it. And you
Yeah,
believe in his portrayal of being haunted, which is really just Ben Affleck's own history of a human
pretty
being,
much.
is used really well to show the rage of why this guy goes out at night and beats the shit out of people. The problem is the rendition that he's given is, well, you're also going to kill people and you're not going to care, and hooray, you're Batman.
Yeah, it doesn't help that he never got a standalone.
I wish we got a, and he was supposed to direct that standalone too.
I know. Such a shame.
It's a shame. Well, also it's not a shame though because when he was still adamant he was going to do it, I don't know what friend he reached out to. My guess would be Matt Damon because it's always Matt Damon. But he reached out to a friend and they're like, "Well, what's your opinion on it?" He's like, "I think it's going to be great. I also think you're going to die if you do it." Because he was getting further down and he's going more down the rabbit hole of
Yeah.
alcoholism again. He was having more issues personally doing those, and it really, really hurt him personally to do that stuff. His performances are so good as Batman, though, that I'm like, God damn it. Him versus Deathstroke would have been really cool.
Yeah.
But I would still
Yeah,
say
it's funny that,
my favorite's probably Keaton still.
but like, that still shows something that, like, other than Clooney, no Batman is awful.
No, they've all been great. I would argue all four of the ones that we've said outside of Val Kilmer have been truly great or phenomenal. And Val Kilmer is very good.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. And okay. It's just he doesn't have the standout. He doesn't have the Batman perfect. He doesn't have the Bruce Wayne perfect. They're both.
But that also correlates with the quality of movie as well. It's not entirely their fault.
No. I mean, here's the thing. I love Ben Affleck's Batman, but I hate what he's given to do in most of those movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Justice League is shit. At least the theatrical.
I would also say that the Zack Snyder's Justice
Honestly,
League isn't a whole heck of a lot better. I think it gets
no,
to average.
I was gonna say it's mediocre. I wouldn't say it's shit though.
Yeah, I'd say it's
Um,
mediocre. I think it gets to
and then
average.
yeah, obviously we talked about Batman v Superman.
Right, we've talked a lot about Batman v Superman on this channel, and our yet to be released fixing Batman v Superman episode, but or the rewrite that we've recorded. It's certainly something in which Val Kilmer does a good job in this movie. He just doesn't stand out,
Yeah,
and I would say that's where this is where to me Batman becomes the star, not the star of the movie playing Batman. Does that make sense?
yeah. I mean, kind of makes sense though.
Yes, I mean obviously you're going to see Batman, but every one of those that we've the four clear cut, the four best, all bring something to it. Where you're like, God, I love that, and you're like, well, I
Quentin
love Michael Keaton
Tarantino.
as
I just
Batman.
saw. Yeah, I just saw a clip of Quentin Tarantino talking about comic book movies and why he doesn't really love them all that much. Where he talks about the reason they're not really movie stars nowadays is because the stars of those movies are not the movie stars. It's the characters that are the stars.
Right.
It's Iron Man that's the star. It's Captain America that's the star. It's not Chris Evans. It's not Robert Downey Jr. It's those characters.
Yes, I understand that. I mean that's extremely valid. Downey Jr. is the only one that I might give a little bit of a pushback to because
But
he elevated that so much, and that movie elevated him so much that
but you have to put into account when he puts out a movie like The Judge,
no one
people
gives a
aren't
fuck.
going to flock to see that.
Yeah, no one gives a shit. Yeah, he just feels bigger
That's a
right now.
movie star.
He feels bigger right now because of Oppenheimer, and he wasn't really the driving force behind it. So, which is fair.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a movie star in Marvel's world. He's not a movie star in the real world. I completely understand.
Exactly.
I think those
So
roles,
Batman is the star.
and I don't have an issue with that being the case because I think it could very much be argued when Batman Begins happens, Christian Bale isn't a star. He's a great
Oh,
actor,
definitely
but he's
not.
not a star. Whereas I think The Dark Knight makes Christian Bale as close to what a movie star can be in this world now. Because
Yeah,
people will go
definitely.
out and watch Christian Bale because they know he's going to be good. I'm not saying
Yeah.
he's classic movie star. It's not like Arnold or Tom Cruise or Stallone back in the day where we go to
And
these
then
movies because
yeah,
they're in
it helps
them.
that and then it helps that he puts stellar performances into non comic book movies as well.
Right. Exactly. He's all around one of the best working actors in the world. So it's just
Exactly.
so that helps. But yeah, I get that. This is the first one. It very much feels like. I'm sorry, I keep doing this to you. It's the old wrestling adage: the man makes the championship. The championship doesn't make the man. This is where one of the first times I think someone could argue Batman makes the actor. The actor doesn't make Batman. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's the easiest way to say it. We've gone 20 minutes on that, but the only other sequence that I think is really positive in this that I really enjoy is the hotel sequence. I think it's really fun.
Yeah, my only problem with it is why is the hell is that thing called the box?
Yeah.
Why isn't it called the blender or something? It's the furthest thing from a box.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Yeah, it does very much just look like a retro blender. What are we doing there,
Yeah.
folks?
Not great production design in terms of props in this movie, I would say.
It's a little on the nose. It's a little on the
Like
nose.
all Riddler's and costume design, Riddler's costume, it's weak.
It is.
Like I like Two Face's suit. It's a little too comic booky,
It's
but
too zany. I think it's fun. The thing is
yeah,
this:
it is
I think the
fun.
Riddler's costumes look good. They're just dumb.
Yes.
I
And I'm not a fan of Robin's suit,
The
but I
final
understand
product.
why they went. Yeah, I understand why they went with it because obviously the actual Robin suit is ridiculous.
So that depends on the Robin. They were smart and used at the time the modern day Robin, which is Tim Drake's suit, which is why they have like Dick Grayson's has the full yellow cape, where
Yeah,
Tim's has the black on the back and the yellow on the interior, the full legs, the bow staff. Tim gets all of that. The original iteration from 1940 or 42, when Robin is introduced, yeah, it's just his circus outfit with no legs and
yeah,
pixie boots, and you're like, who thought this is a good idea? I get it. It's
yeah.
the 40s, and they don't like they're dudes. They don't give a fuck. But yeah, it's to the point where they've been doing a lot of the last 10 to 15 years in Batman comics, really going through the history of Batman because they've been building all the Batman family up as bigger characters and making Batman not just Batman and everyone else. It's Batman plus everybody else. And even when they do flashbacks to Dick Grayson's Robin, they still won't do the booty shorts. They go
Yeah,
back to
because
the
it's
pants because they're
ridiculous.
like, we can't. We just can't do it, man. You'd have to have pants.
Yeah,
What is this kid
yeah.
gonna
It
go
makes
around
sense.
Gotham in fucking December with no pants? Come on.
It makes sense why they go the route they do because he needs to at least fit in with Batman.
Yeah.
He needs a latex suit, or I
What
guess rubber.
what would you prefer he was in then, I guess? To make it fit in the movie. Obviously I would prefer both look better, but
I would just wish they would skip Robin and go straight to Nightwing, honestly. But but that's just because I like Nightwing. That's one of the few characters I actually know in Batman lore that I know I like.
well, Nightwing's awesome. Nightwing. I mean, they're trying to make Nightwing the new Batman. So you might actually really enjoy like right now Batman comics. For the last 2 years, it's been all no, 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 no. We're making Nightwing a star. So,
Yeah.
and Batman's kind of been taking a back seat to Nightwing. So, I will say this.
This Robin suit is different than the one in Batman and Robin, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what bothers me.
Okay.
Is this is actually Robin's suit. And then the idea behind the new one is that he's getting to Nightwing. But it's not even the right color scheme. It's blue and red. Nightwing has either been black and blue, and then for a couple years it was black and red. Or the really old school Nightwing when he had this really ridiculous like disco collar was
Hmm.
blue and yellow. But at least it
Okay.
so it's always been some iteration of black and blue or blue for the most part, except for like 5 years when he had black and red.
Although, I mean, considering how otherwise comic booky this movie was, maybe they should have just went full out, give them the ridiculous
I
stuff.
I don't think you can get away with that in '95. I just don't think you
I
could
don't
have.
know. Like, considering the rest of the movie, just go for it. Fuck it.
Yeah, I don't think in '95 you could get away with booty shorts Robin, but hey, teach their own.
Strong choices. That's what we're going
I mean,
for.
they do it in Lego Batman, but you can get away with it in Lego Batman because Lego Batman's a comedy and it's an animated feature. So,
Hey, this is pretty much a comedy. But Robin is definitely a comedy.
well, Batman and Robin's not even a comedy; it's a tragedy. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I would just want to cover this quickly. I think the hotel sequence is all really fun. I do like the crashing through the ceiling Batman intro. That's cool. Again, the action it's hit or miss, but it's what they're giving us, so it's like okay, cool. But the intro of Robin after Batman's gone through, dives off the roof, and you get that one heroic Batman shot that you have to have in every movie. Him coming down. When they outsmart him, try to set him on fire, and then bury him alive. and Robin comes and saves him. That's a nice touch. That's great.
Yeah.
I think that is
Actually,
all well done.
for 95, that shot where he's falling down the city,
That looks
I was
great.
like, that's pretty impressive.
For 95, it looks damn good.
Yeah,
That's
I was trying to think of how they did that actually, because I was like, if it's CG, that's very impressive. And
yeah.
then
If it's not
if it's
CG,
miniature,
how the fuck did you do it?
if it's miniature work combined with compositing, that's really impressive too. It looked awesome.
Yeah, so I'll give them that. That's a great shot. So that's why
Yeah,
when I said at the beginning of the show, I think there's parts of this. I think the whole second act is actually pretty damn good. There's some silliness here or there, but I think it's pretty damn good.
the Robin stuff just leans into the angst too much for me, but
I'm okay with it because at least it's being taken seriously. Whereas
sure,
other
sure.
parts of the movie are not being taken seriously. If this whole
Also, Chris
movie,
O'Donnell, he's just he's a weak point in
do
this
you
movie.
do you know the other actors they interviewed for Robin?
No.
In this process, they did a casting call in London. Apparently, Joel Schumacher wanted Chris O'Donnell the whole time. And when they were doing the original casting, he was in Ireland doing a movie called Circle of Friends or something like that. Never seen it, don't know anything about it.
Hmm.
And so they're like, well, we gotta do another casting call. So when they did a London casting call, he interviewed Toby Stevens, Ewan McGregor, Alan Cumming, and Jude Law.
Ooh, Jude Law would have been good.
You are a very big Jude Law fan, but yeah, he could have been really fun.
Jude Law's great. Ewan McGregor too. I don't know if I really. That's a really young Ewan McGregor too. That's like really, really young.
Well, he kind of fits the age for Robin, then I guess, you know.
Oh, that Bolt and Jude Law. That's like. Let me look that up.
But
How old they would have
all
been.
four of those actors are extremely notable.
So actually, Jude Law would have been 20 years old on 21 when filming. That would have been
That's
better.
that's dead on spot of the age you're trying to
Yeah.
find for
Plus,
Robin.
he looked a lot younger than he he still looks younger than he is. He's 51. He doesn't look that.
He doesn't look 51.
Yeah, and then Ewan McGregor would have been 23. So
And
about the same as Chris O'Donnell.
Ewan McGregor doesn't have his aging until midway through Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
still
Plus,
looks
he's
pretty
like
young.
when he's clean shaven, he still looks young. So
Yes. So those both are really interesting. I can't see Alan Cumming in that role, but
yeah, that would be an odd
that'd be
choice.
an odd choice. And Toby Stevens, I've only seen Toby Stevens in Die Another Day, so it
What a
doesn't help.
great movie.
Yes, that doesn't help his case for me. He looks pretty clean cut in that movie though, so I'm like, oh, maybe the clean cut
I,
hot kid on the block
honestly though,
kind of thing, maybe. But
I honestly think any of those choices though are better.
and I don't know about Alan Cumming. It's just because of what I've seen of Alan Cumming. I'm like, I don't know, because in the same year, he's playing Boris in Goldeneye, and he's just like, I'm invincible, and you're like, I can't see it
Oh
as
yeah.
Robin, but I just
Oh, actually, okay. Now that you say that, I take that back because he also looks way too old
yes.
in '95. Yeah,
So I
he
mean,
also looks like he's 35
he
in
does.
'95.
He looks like the wormy computer programmer that looks way older than he actually is.
Yeah, Jude
Yeah.
Law or Ewan McGregor would have been great.
So again, Chris O'Donnell is cast. I think he's fine in this. I think he's actually pretty good in some of the stuff that they give him to do. But I think that's also what I said. It's the juxtaposition of at least he gets to play serious.
But it's not convincing when he's playing it.
Sadly, I think I'm just distracted by Two Face's bullshit and Riddler's bullshit that I'm kind of like, works for me.
Yeah, I just He's just not a great actor, unfortunately.
I think they better act. That would be another fun project for us, not for us, for us to do for a show, and then I do all the legwork for it. When it comes to Batman, and be like, okay, you're stuck with the soft reboot after Tim Burton. What do you do? I'm like, okay, who you cast as Robin? Who you cast as Batgirl? Because I don't think Alicia Silverstone is a good Batgirl in Batman and Robin. So
Yeah, that's another poor decision.
that was really bad.
It makes sense financially, but yeah,
Oh yeah, she's at the top of her game back in then. She
yeah,
is the it girl of that time,
yeah. Clueless just came out. Yeah.
but at
Ooh,
the
you know
same
who would have been a decent choice actually?
who?
He wasn't a star yet, but Clueless would have just came out, I think, a year after maybe. Paul Rudd.
Ooh, Paul Rudd as Robin would be interesting. The problem is Paul Rudd looks older than he's supposed to be in Clueless. So he might suffer from that, but he still looks young enough that you're like, okay. I think Paul Rudd can succeed in pretty much anything he does, though. So,
Yeah, Clueless is 95 actually.
yeah.
So I think he'd be a better choice.
Yeah. So, let's just go through the. This is why this movie gets shit on for me. It's the final action sequence. Them
Oh, real
infiltrating
quick
the
though,
Batcave and all that, that's fine.
I just wanted to mention real quick. Schumacher's got a hard on for press conferences
Yes, he
or press
does.
interviews. There are so many in this movie. There's like 5 of them. I was like, what is going on? Why are there so many fucking
Also,
press
speaking of
interviews?
press, I paused the movie. Do you know after Robin saves Batman in the hotel, which, by the way, the shot of him pulling Batman out of the rubble and the suit's all dusty, honestly, that's the best the suit looks. Because it just looks weathered and beaten to
Yeah,
shit, and it looks
that
like
makes sense. Yeah.
Batman did work. And it's awesome, and I love that. They have the whole newspaper to do the transition, where that's where he reveals, oh, Bruce Wayne's Batman. I paused it because I just was like, what does that say? I just wanted to know so I could do it for the
Mhm.
show. Every story is just them talking about Thomas Wayne and how he dies, but it's not accurate to even the same universe that they're playing in.
That ma- I'm surprised they even have it correlating to the world they're in.
But it doesn't even make sense.
Usually,
Compete even
but
with the
usually it's
headlines.
like usually it'll be like a headline and then it'll be like about a Yankee game or something. Because they'll just take text from a real newspaper and just put it in there,
See, that's the
you know?
details that I would put in as a filmmaker. I'm like, no, no, no. We're gonna reward we're gonna reward the 6 motherfuckers that paused this movie, and we're actually gonna write a
Yeah.
story for them.
Because, I mean, I guess at
Give
that
a
point,
comic book
home video,
writer a job so they can get a credit on a movie. That's what I would have done.
yeah. At that point, home video is a thing, I guess. So you could say pausing is a capability,
But
but
that's me. Like if we were ever to make a movie and we're using a newspaper, you better goddamn believe there is going to be an actual article there, and we're not just copy and pasting some bullshit. Unless it's for comedy, then I'm okay with it.
yeah.
But I just thought that
Um,
was a really interesting note that it's
yeah,
not even They go to the painstaking detail of putting stuff about the universe in it, but it's not even accurate to the universe and has nothing to
yeah.
do with what they're saying.
Just to read off a couple more just before the final end scene, I wrote Wayne Manor better be giving out king size candy bars.
Oh
They're
yeah,
not. That's a fail.
yeah.
And
Them
then
infiltrating through trick or treating is hilariously stupid.
pretty stupid. Yeah. And then yeah, the last note I wrote before the final scene is that riddle solving scene, how they get to Edward Nigma is so fucking dumb. It it is so clear that whoever wrote that is just worked backwards
Yeah,
because there's no logical way you could get to that forward. There it would take so many logic jumps to get to that.
yeah. The thing is, this
There's
is
no
you
way
can
you
tell
would
someone
get
worked
there.
backwards and then just went, the audience will get it. Because the point is, the audience is supposed to be the one to figure it out. at the same
Exactly.
time. So I have no issue with the random items being involved. I'm like, okay, maybe that's your red herring. There's numbers in all of these. I'm okay with that. But then they immediately go, what if it's numbers of an alphabet? You're like, couldn't be a code to something? Couldn't be a lockbox somewhere? It's just, what if they're letters of the alphabet? Obviously. And then they go, MAHE. You're like, doesn't do anything. And then, well, what if it was 1 and 8 and it's 18? MRE. Mystery. Mr.
Yeah.
Enigma. Edward Enigma. And you're like, oh
And
my
it's so
god.
when I rolled my eyes so hard at that. This is so fucking stupid.
And that is where this movie takes the final turn back into Sillyville. Because
Yeah.
the whole second act is, for the most part, outside of the bullshit of the two villains running around doing stuff, is pretty serious, actually. And a decent little movie.
Yeah.
And then there comes the finale.
Okay, so in this finale, I have a question.
Yes.
Is any part of this finale reshoots? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay. Because there's multiple times in this where there's really interesting shots where they're inside the building,
Hmm?
but then all the stuff with Two Face and Robin out on that rocky cliff part,
Yeah.
that is incredibly ugly.
It doesn't look
It's
good.
just where it's like foggy and there's zero contrast in all the shots. It's just green.
Yeah, and the only time it even looks okay is when they have the heroic pose shot of Robin. And it's the only time because you're just like, well, it's silhouette and light, so it kind of works for the
But
hero pose. But yeah, it does not look good. It doesn't look good at all.
there's not enough contrast in it for it to be like, even remotely attractive as a shot. It's
So
just noise
this brings something up
at
to
that
me
point.
that I do have a beef with. Outside of one scene where Robin gets to Wayne Manor, why is the sky never blue? Why is it never a normal fucking color? Why is it always like
Oh
it's not
yeah,
it's not like
I guess.
sunset
Yeah,
red, it's red. And you're like,
yeah,
are we on Red Sun Krypton? Are we in the fucking Spider-Verse? Like
yeah.
where the fuck are we? Why does it look like this?
You're on matte painting city.
And then yeah, the whole just pure green light. You're just like, where the fuck are we and what are we doing?
It wouldn't look that bad if they had some kind of. I mean, fog is a decent idea, but it's just like so much of it to the point where it's just enveloping everything
Well, I
to
think
where there's no contrast.
if it's me thinking critically, to me that feels like the fog's gonna cover up a lot of stuff that we're not happy with.
Probably that's why it feels like reshoots to me.
So I don't know. I think the whole them coming out of the Bat Cave is kind of fun. The Bat Boat is far less impressive than the Bat Plane, but
Yeah.
but okay, fine.
Hmm.
Them playing a game of Battleship to defeat them both, way too comic booky. Way too
Yeah.
comic booky. And some of the dialogue, B12, and my favorite, I might add, you're like, okay.
Hey, there you go. Just letting Jim Carrey just go for it.
And then, here's my biggest note of the whole thing. Outside of obvious things such as this, where did the structure from this land come from? We don't know.
I I assumed it was some kind of lighthouse, but that's just me taking a logical jump.
But it looks like the whole Enigma Tech thing from the press conference earlier. So he brought people
True.
to his secret island for a press
True. Yeah,
conference
that doesn't make sense.
and secretly hid his lair. And unless the whole thing is completely automated, clearly people work there. Clearly people make the box. Clearly make
True.
the TV set thing. So what's happening? So unless it's a different location, which again they don't do a good enough job doing, there's this. But my biggest thing, one Batarang makes the whole place blow up.
Yeah.
One battering.
Yeah, one battering to the blender. And explosions.
One battering to the blender.
Actually, I don't even remember. How does. Oh, yeah, Two-Face dies by the coin thing. Okay.
Which I also have that note. Batman, okay to kill if coin flips are involved.
Hey, I wrote down, actually, though, as stupid as it is, I do think that coin thing would probably work. If someone
That obsessed with a
was,
coin.
and if they were balancing on that thin of a thing, and then they were so focused on trying to catch it, I think that probably would work.
So, this is where we get into fun with stories that we always talk about. Too often, these movies make us go past the first logical hurdle of why. Why are we doing this? But then once we're
Sure.
put into these, then we're put into logic hurdle 2. Would it work?
Yeah.
It sucks that you have to go past hurdle 1 where you go, what the fuck are we doing? But
Yeah.
I think you are correct. If this is the scenario that we are put in, yes, I think that works to kill somebody.
Yeah, because like just imagine you're like on a balancing beam, and so you throw up like an apple, and then all of a sudden you say you have to catch that one apple, and then all of a sudden someone throws 10 apples as well. That'd probably knock you off balance.
Yeah, or you're gonna be doing this, or that, and you're not. Yeah, I get it. It's just we had to go past the first hurdle of what are we doing?
Yeah,
Because
it is
also
kind of
then
dumb,
Two
but
Face then decided he's gonna climb down. This is his plan. He
yeah,
is.
that's the dumb part of it.
So I also wrote down where did that structure that they're standing on come from? Because it's not shown in the pit going up for Batman.
It's true. Yeah,
They only show the big coin flippy looking thing with the spikes that falls. They don't show
yeah.
the crossing X structure that they're standing on. So where the fuck did that come from?
That was needed for his batarang, so it came out afterward.
Correct. And then here's Two Face's plan. The whole building's exploding. I have been shown to be cowardly and run. Anytime it's dangerous for me, at all times. But my plan now is I'm going to daintily climb down this unreliable structure and I'm going to balance beam out.
Yeah,
I'm going to have them dead to rights, but the only thing in my character I will stay true to is I will still flip a coin to kill you. And you're like,
yeah.
oh,
And I
God.
appreciate that.
I
At least
appreciate.
he's giving him a chance.
Like, the worst part is as a fan, you're stuck in. His plan's really stupid, but
He's fair.
but he's still being the character. Or his plan's really smart and he's not being the character. Which one would you prefer? And I guess I would prefer the coin flip as he's daintily balancing on this structure that came out of
Yeah.
nowhere. But
Yeah, it is. I mean, it would have just been better had Robin just taken care of him and left it with the I would rather see you in prison. Just leave it at that.
yeah.
But these movies love to be ridiculous. So,
Well, I don't know what Hollywood's obsession is until The Dark Knight. A Batman villain always has to die in these.
yeah, it's true. They love to kill the villain.
And I don't understand why. I don't get it.
And it never makes sense. I know. You could always use them in the future.
And then, of course, the one time they actually do the right thing, the guy actually dies so they can't use him.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, same thing with Marvel too. Happens all the time.
Yeah, Marvel's really way too happy to kill villains. It drives me
Eh,
insane. But that's a different story entirely. Yeah, this whole thing. Also, why is Riddler physically deformed by the brainwave, where his face gets all mutanty and
yeah.
weird? What the
Yeah,
fuck
I
is that
said
about?
I wrote down Riddler looking like Pennywise when he's dying. You know that part when Pennywise is
Yes,
like shriveling up at the
yes,
end? Yeah, he looks exactly like him.
just bad, just dumb, dumb, dumb. And then to end the movie, they're in Arkham Asylum, which of course they don't show any of Arkham Asylum, which it's like,
Yeah.
why?
Also, they it's such a shame. They never like go with any kind of bold production design ever.
Yeah, and it's really
It's
hurtful
annoying.
because Arkham Asylum is clearly the number one choice for Batman fans. Where it's, what would you like to see in a
Yeah.
Batman movie? You're like Arkham, but an Arkham that's super neo gothic, weird, out there, and that's the things people will accept. The funny part is
Yeah.
when they did Arkham in Batman Begins, and I understand Batman Begins and the entire Dark Knight trilogy is meant to be hyper realistic. I understand that. But even when they did it in Batman vs Superman at the end with Lex Luthor, they always really present it as this pseudo prison.
Yeah.
All the fans don't want that. They want the really weird Arkham from the video games and from the comics
Yeah.
that's super fucked up, looking like this giant castle in the middle of nowhere where they just
Yeah.
send people into the dungeons to die. They want that.
Yeah, they always showed it as a modern like mental health facility, which is boring.
And that's the thing is, it goes against all, because then it shows Gotham semi-functional. That's one of the things that you could say is part of the reason Gotham is so fucked and they're totally fine with someone dressing up like a bat and doing all their dirty work for them is you just look around and, well, our mental health facility is still a mental institution from the 1900s where they just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah,
could say
just
like, Batman really understands, and hence the reason you could also have the loophole that why Bruce never helps fund Arkham Asylum properly, and he tries to fund other stuff. He's like, they just treat people horribly there. Why would I do that? I'll
yeah.
stop them, and then I'll get it out of my hands, and I'll just try to get the streets clean. And I'll
Yeah.
fund Blackgate Prison so then we can actually send people to a real functioning prison, not Arkham.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wish they would at least go bold on one of these movies, but we'll see, maybe in the future.
The problem is the one director that could have done a really cool Arkham Asylum ain't ever gonna touch Batman again. Tim Burton would have done a really cool Arkham
That's true.
Asylum. And he
Very
would have
true.
had some real fucked up shit in there. Can you imagine a Clayface by Tim Burton in Arkham Asylum? Or Killer Croc by Tim Burton?
Yeah.
God, that would have been so cool.
Would have been fun.
It would have been really fun. Or I would love to see, especially after Edward Scissorhands, Mr. Freeze in Arkham Asylum with Tim Burton's touches. Glorious. This is what AI should be doing. That's the shit we want. This,
Yeah.
I'd love to see Tim Burton's rendition of an Arkham Asylum. Yeah, movie ends. They have Dr. Burton, the psychologist, there, and you're like, nice touch, guys.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, oh god, why?
And then their new thing, instead of the bat signal going up in the city, is them running in front of the signal. And it shows Batman and Robin running, and then Batman and Robin the movie ends with Batman, Robin, and Batgirl. So,
Yep.
and they do the same thing. It's a nice touch. I think it works. I think it's fun. It's just not as cool as the actual city with Batman or Catwoman or whoever the character you want to.
Yeah.
And also one of the worst mistakes of this entire movie. Kiss from a Rose is not used in the movie at all. It's only on the soundtrack and in the credits.
And it's not even the first credit song,
Yep.
because I just noticed that when you mentioned that. Oh yeah, that wasn't the first credit song.
Why not at least play that shit in the background? Even just the lyric, or even the music without the lyrics during one of the scenes between Bruce and Chase, or something. Just something.
Well, I love when they create a song for a movie and then the composer works with that song and then weaves it into the score.
Yeah, it's great.
Top Gun Maverick did that actually a lot with the Lady Gaga song.
Yes, they did.
It's It's great. It's wonderful, and they do it a lot with Bond songs as well.
Yes, they do.
So yeah, that would have been nice. Get a little
This
kiss from a rose.
missed opportunity. Missed opportunity. All right, but I think that ends this. Not this was much longer than I intended to go on Batman Forever, but we did a lot of history lessons of Batman, and of course it's my wheelhouse, so I'm gonna go. So overall positives. I love the art direction in the second act. That was what I liked, but way too silly, way too fucking silly.
Yeah,
Silly is the operative word for this movie. It's just silly, and not in a good way.
I was gonna say dumb.
I was trying not to go dumb. I was trying to give them a word beyond just this dumb. Because I reserve dumb for other stuff. That I'm just like, this is so stupid. Like, what are you doing? Worth the box office. How do you feel about that one?
Considering the other movies that came out that year, those are way more worthy of it.
I can see it. Again,
Apollo 13, Toy Story, Pocahontas, Ace Ventura. The second Ace Ventura, but I don't like that one. So
yeah. GoldenEye comes out this year. Braveheart's
yeah,
95. Now, granted, most of Braveheart comes in 96 box office wise, but nonetheless,
yes.
I will say
Try to
this.
pull up the rest. Asper, Crimson Tide, Waterworld.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, baby. Let's go.
Here, I'll try to find that for you while you talk.
Not bias at all. Not bias at all as I hold my precious
40,
toy from
41.
1993. It's
It,
41.
it was 41 and it made 38 million.
God damn! I thought we made more money than that, Power Rangers. Come on. That's because
Guess
they didn't
not.
have. It's because they didn't have the Dragon Zord in it. That's the problem. Look at this. Look at this. Everyone would have bought tickets for this movie. So I
Where's
would.
your Ivan Ooze?
Ivan Ooze is great. I think Ivan Ooze
Yeah,
is, and again, silly, but it's a Power Ranger movie, so it's gonna be silly.
yeah.
I can't wait till I make you one day watch that movie. It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, I won't mind that.
Ah. So I would say this to answer the question. Again, I'm of two minds. As a retroactive viewer, no, it's not worth the box office. As a piece of its time in '95, I can get it. It's very '90s.
Oh yeah, I
It's
understand
very,
it.
very '90s box office. Where like there's some movies like Avatar where I don't even understand why audiences thought this was
Oh,
worthwhile.
I understand that one. It's easy to
Yeah,
understand.
I just hate Avatar, so that's why. I don't like Avatar. I don't like the
That's
first
biased.
Avatar and Way of the World. I think or Way of Water, or whatever it is. It's fine. That's just me.
We'll talk about those in the Oscar episode.
I think Avatar, the first movie, is pretty dumb, but that's a different story. Is it worth a rewatch? I can't. As much as I love Batman, I can't say this one's worth a rewatch.
Yeah,
I think the only two
it's.
worth a rewatch are the two Tim Burtons.
I would agree. Those two, yeah, just those two, the Nolan trilogy and Pattinson. Those are the only ones I'd watch.
Fair. Very, very fair. But that has been 1995's biggest box office hit, Batman Forever. Dylan, you got the randomizer ready?
Oh yeah, I should probably pull that up. While I pull it up, is there anything you're hoping for?
um, I mean, just so it's in the spirit of the holiday season, I wouldn't hate 92. However, if we go through Batman this quickly, this might be rough on the podcast because I need a little dose of Batman every once in a while. Um, I wouldn't mind something more recent. We haven't gotten to do anything from the past decade, really.
Well, I want something really old,
I would take something
but
really old or really new. I don't.
let's see here.
I also wouldn't hate getting like a Jaws, something like that,
We got 2005.
which is.
No guesses?
I know it's not. Is it Bat?
Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith.
Because I was like, it's not Batman Begins. I know it's not Batman Begins, even
Hey,
though it should be.
just what I wanted to watch.
Hey, it's well timed. Our Phantom Menace episode's doing well. It's the most commented on show we've had outside of the hate comment filled fucking episode that was Lisa Frankenstein. I gotta go answer. I'm sorry to anyone watching this who hasn't gotten their comment answered. I apologize. I'm getting to your comments. I truly, truly am. Dylan has nothing to do with the comments. That's all me, unless Dylan says, say this in response to somebody. So I got to get back to y'all, but it's been really fun. YouTube's been really excited about that one compared to our other shows. So I hope they stuck with us for the show. And now we get to cover Star Wars Episode 3, which at one time in my life had the title of movie I had watched the most in a theater.
It's probably true for me as well.
I thought a Harry Potter would have taken it out by now.
Oh no, I'm saying at that point
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't
in 2005.
that wasn't overtaken for me until Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy still holds the record. But that was simply due to the circumstances of my life at the time. My wife was gone for 7 weeks, and I had nothing to do except go to the movies for cheap on Tuesdays and Thursdays because Marcus Theaters was great.
Yeah,
And which is why Marcus Theaters will
yeah.
eternally have my loyalty.
Just so you know, I will not be watching Attack of the Clones beforehand. I'm
What?
skipping it.
What? What?
Fuck that. I'm only watching the third.
That's very fair. But yeah, so apparently on the next time for our big box office series, we're gonna be watching Star Wars episode 3. Oh god. Revenge of the Sith. Gonna be a heck of a lot of fun. Honestly, I think it's
Yeah,
gonna be very similar to Batman Forever, where we're gonna like one certain section of the movie and the rest is gonna be
probably.
not good.
Yep.
All right, but that has been this show. Thank you guys so much for listening to it or watching it, wherever you may be. We appreciate all of y'all out there. Go watch a great movie and treat yourself well. Peace, love, and hugs to you all. Goodbye!